Hey there, welcome to history. How's that for an opening, huh? No, this is our first episode we've ever done here, so this is a big deal, especially for me because I have no experience with anything similar to this. So this is going to be a first time thing for us here. So hopefully this is the first of many, many, many more to come. But the reason I wanted to do this episode is kind of like let's call it an intermezzo. How about that for a classy word here? Um, Basically, you saw the first video that I introduced myself as just kind of a high level overview of what this podcast is going to be all about. But on this episode, I wanted to kind of get into the reasoning behind it, and really just have you understand where I'm coming from, and maybe give you a little bit of a deeper dive into it. So on today's podcast, I'm going to be interviewing myself. um, but no, the so like I said, in the in the first introduction, there is I want this to be something that athletes, weekend warriors, amateur, aspiring athletes that enjoy competing or enjoyed competing in the past, or are looking to kind of get into a new sport or anything like that. My goal is to provide that platform for them, um, to get into that, to be the conduit for that, because that's really my story. That's my personal story, and this is something that's near and dear to my heart, and it's something that I really want to expose other people to. And um, so first of all, you may be like, why does this guy have the same shirt on that he had on in the introduction? Why is he wearing like a dressy shirt when he's obviously in some like corner of a room somewhere? Well, I'll tell you why. Because you only have one time for a first impression, and if you missed the intro and you're landing on this one, I'm making that first impression again. But most of the time, I'm probably going to have on a t-shirt, a backwards hat. So in the future, I can go ahead and make fun of myself. Um, but my story. So, for me, I have an athletic background. I did not say I was a very good athlete, but I have an athletic background. So, I mean, my earliest memories are playing youth soccer. I'm from Buffalo, New York, and I remember growing up playing soccer, t-ball. These are some of my earliest memories that I have. And once I started to get to middle school, that's when things start to get a little bit more serious and you start to see, basically everyone as a kid, at least my age, played some kind of sport growing up. They start to see it get a little bit more competitive. Kids start to fall off and yada yada. Well, once you get to high school, that's legit, man. You're getting people that are trying to get scholarships. They're competing for schools to give them money to continue that. They're playing for their athletic lives. If you're a big fan of the sport that you're competing in, you may never have a shot to play that sport again. So I think my story is not unlike anyone else's in the fact that I played sports my whole childhood up to high school, and then my story fortunately was able to continue, but a lot of people or athletes that age don't have that ability to continue on with their athletics. So for me, I've been all over the place. I've had a pretty wild go at it. But my freshman year of high school or of college, I'm sorry. And keep in mind, these are just like off the cuff. There's nothing. I'm not reading anything. I want this to be as candid and as just as intimate as possible in an appropriate way. Let's not get crazy. Um, but so what I'm doing is like with the people that I'm going to be interviewing on this podcast, aside from some of my friends that I've met through the sports that I do, we'll get to in a second. Um, Aside from some of the friends that I've gathered, I try to know as little as I can about these people that I'm going to be speaking with, because I want it to be candid conversations. I want to learn along with you. I think that's a pretty cool concept. So I don't want to be like prepping people in terms of like interview questions so they come like bam 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 bam. I want it to be just organic and just having a conversation. Some of these we may start talking about their sport and we may tail off into different conversations, and I think that's cool too because you get to learn about these athletes as people, and you may even share common interests and be like, okay, I would have never considered this sport because this girl or this guy likes X, Y, and Z. Maybe I want to get into that sport. So these are really just non-formal, off the cuff, just talking. And you'll realize too, as you start to hear me talk, I realize that I don't really have the grasp on the English language that I thought I did. I'll look for a phrase or a word or a sentence, and it's just it's gone. It's not in there. So feel free to laugh with me, laugh at me. I don't care. To me, if I'm making you laugh, that's good. So to kind of get back to my story, I wasn't any kind of like a standout athlete in high school. I was always pretty good. I played baseball, I played football, and I swam. I played swimming. See, that's exactly what I'm talking about. But I was a swimmer, and that remember that's going to come back. But football was my passion. I loved it. I was obsessed with it. I loved the X and the O's. I loved the chess match about it. I really loved everything there was about football. It's chess with just strength and brute force. So that's what I. It was amazing. I loved it, and unfortunately, I was born in a short Italian's body. So, looking like Mario and trying to play football was not the best. But I remember growing up, Wayne Corbett was my biggest hero. That was about the time that I was playing high school football. He was lighting up the league, or at least, he was a short receiver that I, looked up to. So I remember him being a real, and that was tough for me because, like I told you, I'm from Buffalo and he was a New York Jet. So that was not easy to have him as a role model. I was always hoping he'd get traded to the Bills. Obviously, never happened, but whatever. So, anyways, at the end of my football career, I was really upset in high school because I didn't think I'd ever have a shot to play football again. So they had a draft, or they had a combine. I'm sorry. Yeah, I got into the NFL draft right out of high school. I was that good. They had a combine, and I remember going to that combine, and it was in the middle of our senior year, I believe. It was either I forgot exactly when it was, but that's neither here nor there. But I do remember, and this is how old I am, bringing VHS tapes to that combine. And I remember knowing I wasn't going on to play college football. But I always in the back of my mind, I've always had that. But what if? But what if? What if I go hard? So I remember after the combine, I came back to grab the tapes that I brought, and there weren't any left. So that was really the first seed of maybe I can do this that really moved me forward. Um, so that really inspired me. And I was like, well, that was my junior year now that I'm thinking about it. So I was just like, maybe I can do this. Maybe I can milk another couple years of football, as we move forward. So I remember in my senior year of high school, giving everything that I had into it. And, I had some touchdowns, I had some yards, um, I don't even remember. I was up there in receiving, but it wasn't like we were some like, top gun, top flight Florida offense, but I did well. I did well. And I remember I got accepted to Chapman University in Orange, California. And on my school visit, I was in talks with the coach about trying out and, trying to make the team. And great guy. Unfortunately, I forgot his name because it was a while ago, but he off the top of my head, but started with a V, I think. That helps, right? Chapman University, Coach V. I mean, obviously you know him. But I remember, speaking with him, and it went really well. It went really well, and he liked my attitude because I was like, I was going to be Rudy. Let's face it, I knew what it was going to be. So, showed up in California for training camp and grinded and really put everything I had into it and made the team. And, I actually got into a couple games, and that was pretty crazy. I remember doing those one-on-ones, when the entire team is watching you. If you've never played football before, it is the most intimidating thing in the entire damn world. When a cornerback lines up on you as a receiver, and you and the quarterback know what route you're going to run, and if that corner gets a hold of you and throws you out of bounds, and when you line up, it's always funny to be like, oh, let's do the little guy's up, let's put the big guy on him, or the super senior, or whatever. So yeah, I got my ass handed to me a couple times, but it makes you tougher. Definitely makes you tougher, and allows you to grow some thick skin. So I did that, and got in the game, and had it was a great first year experience for me to play college football and understand like what it's like to play at the next level up. I thought that was cool. So then I went to I transferred from Chapman to the University of Buffalo, and the University of Buffalo is Division I football, and I knew as a 5'6.5", 5'7", we'll say 5'7", receiver who was 100, I think it was like 155 pounds at the time, soaking wet, maybe 150. I was small. This wasn't a chance in hell I was making the team. So I got into rugby. And this is kind of like at the very beginning of, as I started to think about my story, where I got this idea for the podcast. And it was my one of my boys, Sam Smith. Shout out to Sam Smith. Kyle Larson. Shout out to Kyle Larson. Um, they really got me into rugby because they're like, hey man, you're back in Buffalo. You have these football skills. You're really fast and elusive. You should try out rugby. So I did, and it was a friggin' awesome experience. It was great, and I really enjoyed it a lot. And I played 2 years of college rugby at the University of Buffalo, and then as a really smart, 21 year old, I never finished college at that point, and I moved to North Carolina as a 21-year-old. And so as a 21-year-old, as I moved to Carolina, that was the first time in my life I'd never played any sports. And I just felt that it was missing. You know what I mean? I just felt this desire to compete and I to challenge myself and to train. Like what's the saying? The end's never as good as the journey, or whatever. I know I butchered it, but you know what I'm saying. Well, that the the day to day of being meant getting up, going to the gym, pushing yourself against another human, like we were, doing routes and all that kind of stuff. I really, really miss that. So I worked out at a gym down there, and I met this guy, and he's like, "Hey, man, there's a semi-pro football team in the area. You should try out for it." And I was like, "Okay, well, no. I am short, and this is Charlotte, North Carolina. Like, this is legit football." So what I did though, he planted that seed in my head, and I dedicated my life to just getting bigger, and getting stronger and training for football. And I did, and I tried out for this semi-pro team, and I made it, which was pretty freaking cool. So they were called the Carolina Storm, and we got to travel throughout North Carolina and play different semi-pro teams down there. Not paid, semi-pro, you're paying to play, but it's full contact, full football, or full contact, full pads, everything. You're wearing, um, it's all your own equipment, but it's an organization, and you go to play in front of fans, and the money from the fans goes to like your organization. It was amazing. It was one of the coolest experiences that I've ever had, and that was when I was like 22. Um, so when I was 24, I remember in my high school there was a guy who ran, or his name is Matt O'Malley. He was a huge influence in my life as a receiver in high school, and he had played for the Buffalo Gladiators, which was a semi-pro team in Buffalo. Now, if I had never, ever, if I was in that mindset when I was a high school athlete, thought about the Buffalo Gladiators, there was no chance of me ever playing for the Buffalo Gladiators. I didn't even know if I was going to play college ball at that point. And the Buffalo Gladiators had won multiple national championships. Like this was a legit team. So when I moved back to Buffalo, though, I was like, you know what? I have some semi-pro experience. I played in Carolina. These guys are really good. So I moved back to Buffalo and tried out for the Gladiators, and lo and behold, I made it. And I actually wound up over the course of my career with the Buffalo Gladiators, got to play in a national championship down in Florida, in Miami, and also got to, I became the captain of the team and developed some really cool personal, lifelong relationships that I will have, forever. So that was really cool. And um, the owner of the arena, or the owner of the semi-pro football team actually started a professional indoor team in Buffalo as well. I'm hitting my stand here and it's shaking, so there's no earthquake here. So we're good. I'm safe. I know you were really worried. Um, but he started a professional indoor team. And I kind of used my experiences like I'm not going to make a college team, made it. I'm not going to play, you know, Division 1 rugby, made it. I'm not going to play semi-pro football, made it. You know, I'm not going to play for the Glide. So I used these experiences to be like, screw it, I'm going to try out for that, you know, and I remember it was a grind. I was told I was too short to make the team, but didn't stop me. Kept going to all the practices, kept doing all the workouts, and I worked my way to the starting roster. And I was a starting wide receiver in a professional indoor football team called the Buffalo Lightning. And so that was really cool. And all this is relevant in my whole story and thought process because I played that for 2 years, and then I was 28 years old, 28, 29, somewhere in the neighborhood. And I'm like, I just simply can't do this anymore, man. Arena football. I mean, football from eighth grade to college, you take a toll on your body, but then you go beyond that another 10 years. That's whew. So. And I understand that there are elite athletes that are in the NFL that do that for a career. I get it. Me, let's think about what the athletic trainers and what the system of concussion protocol is in semi-pro. Uh, there ain't any. So it was a toll on your body. So um, I'll never. This was a giant turning point in my life. So I ended my football career, and it was really hard for me to do because I'm self-aware. I understand that I need competition. I like to challenge myself. I'm comfortable with being uncomfortable. That's kind of that growth mindset kind of thing, I guess. But I need that physical, competition. I don't win a lot. Don't get me wrong. I almost never win, but I like competing. You know what I mean? I have that fire in me. So I was working for a company at the time in Buffalo, and the corporate challenge came along, and the corporate challenge is a 3.5 mile race put on in Buffalo and all over the world. This is a worldwide event that corporations buy into, and it's just a really fun day. I mean, we're talking like 15,000 people running around running this race, so it's a really fun day. And then at the end, you get a bunch of beer and food and stuff, and it's a good time with all your coworkers. So and it all goes to a good cause, I think, or something. But I remember I signed up for it the first year because I'm like, I just want to, try this out. I want to party. It'll be fun afterwards. It was by my house where I lived at the time. So it's like, let's do it. So I did it 3.5 miles. And I know this isn't a big deal, but my goal, my competitive, streak in me, I'm like, I want to get under 30 seconds or 30 seconds. I ran 3.5 miles in 30 seconds. I set a world record, no training. It was incredible. Yeah. I wanted to get in under 30 minutes. And that's not an accomplishment as a runner. Like anyone can do that. That's not fast. Um, but for me, I, was heavier, not heavier. I was football weight. I wasn't fat or anything, but with no endurance training. And I know 3.5 miles really isn't an endurance type race, but I wanted to get into it. So I was like, under 30 minutes, let's go. I'm doing this. So I got in at like 29:30. And I'll never forget that feeling of, I started thinking back. I'm like, okay, well, at the beginning, I was kind of, zigging and zagging, and it really wasn't, on, a clear path. So that now the wheels start turning. And now I'm like, okay, I can get into this. I can get into this racing scene. And so after that, Buffalo has a great, 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 great running scene. It is incredible. And you can go to this website, and there are 3 to 4 races almost every weekend for the entire year. And now I'm like, holy shit, this is something that like I can like just always do. Because then you start looking at, there's age group awards. So, they're in a 5 year increments. So, I was, 28, 29 at the time. So I'm like, okay, once I get to 30 to 35, new age group. 35 to 40, new age group. So on and so forth. So I started to really get into it. Now, this is where the story gets kind of weird. Um, I started running a bunch of 5Ks all over the place. I wasn't really training. I was more just, running here and there. And Just if I wanted to go for a run, I'd go. There was no plan or anything. So, um, Grand Theft Auto 5 came out, and when Grand Theft Auto 5 came out, believe it or not, that's a game changer in my whole world. What happened was, if any of you played Grand Theft Auto, there are triathlons that you can do in them, and you do like the first three, and then there's an Ironman triathlon as like the last one that gets unlocked. They can't call it an Ironman triathlon for obviously marketing purposes or copyright, but see the words again. I'm no good with the words. But I remember sitting there hitting X for a half hour. It's a true story. Hitting X for a half hour, and swimming in the water, and I think to myself, and I go, you know, I like running 5Ks. And I was the captain of my swim team in high school. See, I told you that swimming would come back. Um, I'm like, anyone can ride a bike, right? So I called my dad and I said, Dad, um, I want to get into triathlon. The bikes, I'm looking into them, are super expensive. And is there any way that you could maybe help me out and then like maybe buy it for me and then I'll pay it back on a monthly basis or something like that? Because at 29 years old, I had no money as a normal human does, right? He's like, no, no problem, buddy, no problem. He gets it for me. We meet at the bike store. He gets it for me, and um, this was St. Patrick's Day of 2016. And I said, I was like, oh, this is great. I got fit for it and everything. Well, my first race I signed up for was like early June, maybe even late May. I think it was late May actually. Um, Either way, very short time period between when the bike was bought and my first race. Well, in that time period, my father passed away, so I didn't have. Now I'm just like, you know what? Now I'm going as hard as I possibly can in these 2 months to do the best that I can at this race. And race day comes, I'm all excited, I'm all jacked up, and I'm in the transition area. If anyone knows about triathlon, you get there early to set up your bike and your shoes, and it's the area that you get set up in between the different disciplines. Well, I remember I met a woman who was next to me. She was just so nice. She was so friendly. I'm like, listen, I got no idea what I'm doing. Please help me. And she helped me out a lot. And she explained to me and described, the different, procedures of the race and all that kind of stuff. And I wound up coming in second place in my age group at that race, and it felt good. I'm like, did you proud, Dad? This is great. And it was on the bike that he bought me, obviously, and it was really good. Well, at that time, I was running 5Ks every week. I was dumping money. That's probably didn't have money for a bike. I'm dumping money into friggin' 5Ks all over the place. So I was at the Buffalo Marathon 5K the day before the Buffalo Marathon, and I see that same woman at at the marathon or at the 5K, and she goes, "You know, you're pretty good." And she said, we started talking about watches or something. I forgot, but she goes, "You're pretty good. There's a national championship for this. My daughter just got invited, or someone else's daughter." Listen, I told you, years of semi-pro football. This is applesauce up here. But the important part was I had a discussion with either her. Discussion started because of her, and it might have been the other guy who's like, my daughter just qualified for nationals or whatever. So now I'll never forget. Me and my fiance are sitting on our bed. We're looking at a computer, and we're researching about the national championship. And then the national championship qualifies you for the world championship. They pick the top, whatever's. So now I'm like, okay, I'm gonna become obsessed with this one. So the rest is history. I really went hard, put my head down, and just worked my ass off. And I wound up, it's 2020. It's what, July 21st, 2020 right now. I've qualified for the past four world championships. The first one I went to was in Rotterdam in the Netherlands. The second one I went to was in 2019 in Lausanne, Switzerland. Um, the two that I couldn't make it to, the Gold Coast, and well, this year it's in Edmonton next month, but there's uh, there's some kind of like, I don't know, people are getting sick and it got canceled or something. Um, but in the Gold Coast, I moved from New York to Texas, so I couldn't make it, for that one. But yeah, so and to this day, this is the bike that my dad got me, and I still ride it every day, and I still do race in it as well. So to kind of tie it all together, that's my journey. That's how I got from point A to point B. And as I started thinking about my journey, you always think about I can't be the only one, right? Um, if I'm thinking it, that means someone else is thinking it, right? So I started, talking to people about this idea for the podcast. I'm like, hey, you're competitive, you like sports. Would you, listen to something like this? And then people are like, I know a guy, this guy, and blah blah blah. And then it's just kind of like snowballed from there. So, for me, I love competing. I've said it a million times. And I was really excited to get into a new sport. And this sport, in the 4 short years that I've been doing it, has taken me all over the world. It has taken me, from such cool experience. I get to wear the Team USA crest on my kit. See, I'm still so new. I call it the wrong names and shit all the time. I call it a jersey because I'm so used to football stuff. But um, it's taken me over. But the point is, if I never did that race, that 5K at my job that I had, I never would have been, to me, that was kind of like I opened the door a little bit and looked in. You know what I mean? And then I saw what was going on in there, and I'm like, I can dig it. I can get into that. Um, and then from there, the rest is history. So, what I really want to get the point across is, share this podcast with people who you think are competitive and that might be interested in learning about different sports to compete in. And I'm not talking, you dedicate your life to it and you get crazy at it. I mean, I have the world champion Can Jam guys coming up on this podcast. I have a bowler who's bowled 21 300s and does tournaments all the time. I have all these different types of athletes that I just want to expose them to and just say, wow, that sounds pretty cool. I'd like to try that. That's really the whole premise behind this. So, I hope you found my story, quasi interesting. Who the hell knows if you're still listening to this? I don't know. I'm going to put this out on the internet and we'll go from there. We'll see I just whacked my. um, but I'm just, you know, I, I'm coming from a good place. I'm coming from a place of wanting to help other people kind of, like I keep saying, I think it's the best way to put it, scratch that competitive itch. There's so many athletes out there that part of their daily lives for, their 20 years was playing sports. Then all of a sudden, it just gets cut off, and then you're done playing sports. You can't tell me that that burning desire to compete goes away. It doesn't. So, my hope is you watch this and you go, there's a dart league that I could go to the national championships for. I could bring my family there. We could make a trip. Wow, I'm in. So that's the whole point of this whole thing here. So it's going to be candid, off the cuff. We're just going to have really organic, natural conversations with some really cool, high level athletes from around the world. And, thanks for listening to my rant here. And, the only person listening right now is my computer. Maybe the CIA. You don't know what they're doing. No, but seriously, thanks for stopping by. I really do appreciate it. Share away and make sure that you tell people about this because I really do think we can build a really cool community here and get people excited about learning about some really cool stuff that amateur and semi-pro athletes are doing around the world. All right, well, thanks for your time. Have a great day, and we'll see you in episode 2.